Creem Magazine has come back. Um, but let me just say beforehand, I knew of Creem Magazine. I had a few back issues, but I was about this, not this, this, not this. I was a Kerrang man growing up. This was always my magazine as opposed to this. But I will take a crack at this one. So anyway, just a few things about it. First of all, in terms of the positives, it's a little pricey. I think this was like 30, kind of a lot. It's a very large magazine, very collectible, right? Um, JJ Kramer opens up with an article about the struggle to get the rights back to the magazine. It's very interesting.
I love the cover.
The Ray
It
Pettibone
says
artwork. Yep.
rock is dead. So is print, which is true because actually
Yeah.
But they both had a rebirth.
Yes. There's a mailbag in here, kind of a throwback, letters being written. I'll be writing one. You'll find out why in a minute. There's a Dear Abby kind of thing in there with Cream's co-founder, John Ulzecki. And she's, people ask for life advice and she answers them with stories about like Paul Stanley's squeaky shoes and almost getting peed on by Iggy Pop. So it's interesting, lots of rock and roll adjacent stuff. Like this woman that makes flowy dresses out of old concert shirts. A pretty cool article about the rise of latex in the goth industrial genre.
I saw somebody else online trying to get old concert t-shirts. It must be a thing.
He reached out to me and asked to provide any vintage. Yeah, right. I was lucky to make it home alive from those shows. What else? There's a cool article in there from an unpublished book about Keith Moon. There's a really good article in there about the Osmonds album Crazy Horses, where they attempted to make like a rock album, like a Zepp type of album. And it's really interesting that Donny Osmond talks about how during the day he would be upstairs in the studio recording like, the bubblegum shit. And then at night he'd come down and they'd plug in the wah pedals and the distortion to try to make a rock album. It's very interesting.
Talk about a dual existence.
And they work around the clock too. I mean, they worked hard for the money, the Osmonds. So there's also an article in there about a band that I love called Warthog. They're a great hardcore band with a skeleted mascot. And kind of a cool rock photography section, although the guys in Nine Inch Nails are wearing fucking shorts. I guess we can forgive them.
Maybe it was hot.
In terms of the bad, okay. There's kind of a distinct absence of metal. The online version has a nice article about Diamond Head, but it mysteriously didn't make this issue. And there's no reviews. I don't really care that much about that. I used to have a few back issues, like I said, and their reviews were never anything to write home about, I thought. But there is one article I must address.
Oh
boy. I guess he's their new editor. He's an old Pitchfork guy. You knew right away. His name's Zachary Lipez. He has an article on a Canadian jangle pop singer-songwriter called Mac DeMarco. And I have to give hats off to Zach because I've written a lot about rock and roll over the years. He finds a way to break 5 of my rules.
Wow.
Okay, here we go. The first rule, exile on repeat. Now, first of all, let me just say this guy, Zach, he wants to be Lester Bangs so bad. I mean, he's got it down. A lot of this is same shit that Lester Bangs used to pull.
He's
fucking genius.
He's right? Very important.
Whatever.
I kind of see him pulling, his vegetables out of the microwave.
Yeah. I remember Bangs would write about how Blondie was just the Shangri-Las reheated. Alice Cooper is just a regurgitated Velvet Underground. Of course, the Velvet Underground being the be-all end-all of all musics. Wow. And this guy does the same thing, exile on repeat. The second rule he breaks is name dropius maximus.
Oh, boy.
Such a fucking tool. Pack in as many perceived cool name drops as possible. If he mentions Mark Fisher one more time, I'm going to shoot myself. John Berryman, Claro, Stabbing Westward, name dropius maximus. Zach, give us a break, okay?
Sounds like the people who used to try to get into the restaurant where I worked and thought if they mentioned the name of the owner, that was going to make a difference.
That's a salesman thing.
Oh, I know them. Yes, so do I. I work for them. Go away. Go sit at the bar.
We're like salespeople that call me and they're like, hey, Mark, how's it going? And I'm like, do I know you? It doesn't work at all. It doesn't help. All right. Rule number 3 that Zach doesn't seem to know is put down the thesaurus and nobody gets hurt. He uses the word solipsistic twice. Wow. I can barely even say it. This isn't a rock and roll review, really. Solipsistic. expectoring, outre contraculture, pernicious confluences.
Pernicious
Pernicious
confluences.
confluences. Apparently, yes, he's writing a novel.
I had that once. I needed antibiotics.
Yeah, it doesn't belong in a rock and roll review at all. And then rule number 4, senseless parenthesis. Just a quick note to show you how clever I am. Tangential blips like sea punk. Do you know what cottagecore is? I do, because I'm so hip and cool.
I had a book like that, but instead of the parentheses, they would do a footnote.
There was a lot of footnotes?
Yeah, footnote at the bottom of the page, which is like good because if you don't want to read it, then just ignore the footnotes. Just go on.
Fuck off. How about that? Fuck off. Stop writing. And then the final one, this is straight out of Lester Bangsville, The White Rabbit. Did I mention I was high? Did I tell you the drugs I was on? Did I mention that we had down some cough syrup? Did I mention that we had done some ludes? It's all right, dude. You know, it kind of takes away from it when you got to keep telling us about how high you were. You know, we're all really impressed here.
Looks like Barney, and the other looks like Fred. For the Flintstone vitamins.
Yeah. Actually, look this guy up. This article was so bad. I looked this guy up, and when his picture came up, I could almost smell the patchouli oil coming off of him. Yeah, and apparently he is the new editor of Creem. So out with Pitchfork, in with the Creem. So we'll see what wacky hijinks comes. But I'm going to go ahead and proofread his article and send it back to him. So let's see how that goes. I'll let you know how it goes. Anyway, so everything in New Cream's pretty good except for Zach.
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.